In the 20 years since its first episode aired, Avatar: The Last Airbender has earned its legacy as a defining show of the 21st century. Its combination of all-ages comedy, strong world-building, and intelligently written characters made it the perfect show for kids of the 2000s to learn how stories can impact you. And in the years since, its reach has gone far beyond, proving its staying power for kids and adults alike. What I find most impressive about Avatar's story is how well thought out and personal it is. Every discussion I have about the show reveals nuances I didn't see previously. The story is endless in that way, for I never tire of discussing it. And it does this with a concept that by all accounts seems rather standard. Avatar is a quintessential hero's tale, as Aang has to come to terms with being the savior of the world. The world building follows a straightforward structure through the bending magic system. Avatar is unmatched in using simplicity to create meaning and intrigue. It starts with the series' book structure that sets up expectations for that season efficiently, by cluing us in to Aang's goals as well as the cultures we'll visit. The same goes for the magic system. Avatar is based around the use of 4 elements: earth, fire, water, and air. Accessibility gives this magic system its base, but it's how bending influences character that makes it compelling. Characters' identities are deeply connected to their relationship with bending, and that relationship dictates their skill with the magic. The intimacy between person and bending reveals their inner essence. Take Azula's blue flames, or the way Katara bends out of frustration. Their relationship with magic tells us everything we need to know about them. All great fantasy stories utilize magic in a personal way, and Avatar takes this a step further. Avatar uses its characters' perception, ability, and skill with bending to visually and metaphorically express how they deal with trauma. Avatar explores trauma in a deeply meaningful way, as all of the major characters must face their difficult pasts to solidify their futures. A lens that we can apply to Avatar is the idea that we understand trauma as a break in the story we tell ourselves about ourselves. Here's what I mean. We are all collectively telling a story in our own mind about the kind of person we are. Trauma are the times in our lives that shatter that story, a breaking point where the old story is no longer persuasive. When you view trauma through that lens, we can then apply it to the characters in Avatar to better understand their development, and in return, see how the creators use bending as the greatest expression of character. We have to start with Aang's journey. Aang, an airbending monk, is told at 12 years old that he's the Avatar. The Avatar being the only person in the world who has the ability to bend all 4 elements, and with that great power comes the expectation to protect. Before this, Aang was the carefree class clown who enjoyed the simplicity of his life.
Yeah!
Now his peers start to treat him differently as he faces the reality of being the Avatar.
Whatever team you're on. But I'm still the same.
So he does the only logical thing a 12-year-old would do in this situation. He runs away. Taking his flying bison, Aang finds himself caught in a storm over the ocean, quickly losing control and plummeting into the sea below. Thankfully, his avatar powers kick in as he seals himself in an iceberg. When he wakes up, that 12-year-old who ran away from responsibility discovers that he's been asleep for 100 years. In that time, all of the airbenders have been killed. The Fire Nation started a war, and the world wonders why the Avatar disappeared. You know, just normal things for a 12-year-old to go through. Aang's journey throughout the rest of the series is him coming to terms with this role, which is expressed through the Avatar state. The Avatar state is an all-powerful level an Avatar could reach by tapping into the powers of their past lives to ensure that no other bender can stand against them. The inclusion of past Avatars within the story adds a lot to Aang's development. He learns from them, feels almost a part of them, but is also very different. The brilliant move the creators of Avatar make is limiting Aang's ability to use the Avatar state as a way to reflect the disconnect between who he thinks he is and who he really is. In other words, Aang fails to utilize the Avatar state until he overcomes the trauma of his past. The struggle will come up time and again throughout Avatar. When Aang hurts Katara firebending, he vows he'd never firebend again. That rejection of a part of himself limits his ability to reach his full potential as the Avatar. That fear of acceptance leads to Aang's failures in Season 2, where he almost loses the ability to go into the Avatar state ever again. Aang's deep-seated trauma comes from two things that seem to be at odds: his love of friendship and the responsibility of being the Avatar. Aang ran away from that responsibility because he didn't want to be considered different from his friends. Now the thought of losing Katara is not worth the price. You can't watch Aang and not make the general connection to the narrative around growing up, that taking on responsibility means abandoning friends, the idea that you get older and inevitably you lose those who are close with you. Aang's journey is a rejection of this idea, as he has a choice. The final battle between Aang and Ozai is a masterclass in how to pull off a climax, and it all starts with Aang's development. After learning firebending from Zuko, Aang is finally ready to take on the responsibility of being the Avatar and facing Ozai, except the night before the battle, Aang has doubts about how to move forward, so he searches within himself, looking to his past lives to give him advice on how to deal with this threat. Aang was raised as a monk who believes in non-violence, so an execution of Ozai goes against those principles. Even the most dangerous person in the world, Aang would feel remorse over killing. When Aang asks his past lives for help, they all tell him that Ozai must be killed. Once the battle arrives, Ozai overruns Aang in their battle, as he fails to utilize the Avatar state since his failure at the end of the second season. Delivering a major blow under the pressure, Aang hides once again, this time in a rock instead of ice. As the wound in his back is retouched, the path forward becomes clear. In the fight scene, Aang dramatically comes to a realization about himself and emerges from the shelter he's been living in the entire series, fully in the Avatar state. His solution to the problem? Take away Ozai's bending. At the end of the series, Aang has accepted himself as the Avatar, but refuses to reject Katara or kill. He finds the right balance between what an Avatar is expected to do and what Aang's believes he should do. He finds his own self-identity while taking up the mantle of Avatar. I love the simple but profound connection between the iceberg at the beginning of the series and the rock shelter he creates in this final battle. Ozai throwing fire at him, literally the formation of trauma that Aang has been living under, and he responds by embracing himself. Choice is crucial here. Aang makes the choice to write his own story and not let the difficulty of his past continue to define him. Much of the brilliance of Avatar's character writing comes from characters who are active and not passive. Even in their most difficult moments, this cast remembers it's their choice in how to move forward. The trauma of the past isn't swept away in this moment, but it shows in an action-packed way how overcoming the most difficult moments in life should be accompanied by aligning the story you tell yourself about yourself. Of course, Aang isn't the only character who comments on trauma in this way. I think most minds would immediately go to Zuko and the turn he takes from angsty teen villain to the conflicted, caring hero. Zuko's struggle with his past and the scar his father gave him starts to change him earlier than Aang, which makes sense because he has a long way to go. Much like Aang, Zuko loses his ability to firebend once he accepts a new path for himself. Zuko lived a lie of who he wanted to be, a ruthless person like his father. In reality, he needed to follow a kinder path. It can be so difficult to choose a new direction in life when you've been going the opposite way for so long, even if you know that you have found a better path. Like for Zuko, it can take time to build yourself back up, but you will be all the better for it. Zuko and Aang's characters are the crowning achievement for Avatar, but the entire cast is given a similar kind of love and attention to detail. Toph pioneers a new style of bending because she can feel what other people would overlook. Metal bending is born out of a personal point of view that Toph brings as an elite bender who happens to be blind. Every character in Avatar struggles to define their identity. The search of the self made for the ideal theme for a kid show, where the ones who watch all were about to face the challenge of choosing an identity. What impresses me most 20 years later is how trauma was folded into each character's pursuit. Avatar is an example series, one instructors point to for how to write a good magic system or create great character arcs. The core of that is a group of characters who all find themselves in search of discovering who they should be. This mature side of Avatar storytelling is what makes it so rewatchable and worthy of pursuit, even if you aren't a kid when you first come across it. The relationship between character and magic, world and person, through the journey of self-actualization and overcoming the trauma of the past, makes Avatar one of the greatest coming-of-age stories in the modern age. As Avatar shows, no matter who you are, we will all break, but it's the choices we make after that allows us to grow even stronger. Thank you so much for watching this video. I hope you enjoyed it. I've really wanted to tackle this Avatar concept for a long time, and so it was a lot of fun to finally be able to talk about it. This is a series that, like Haikyuu and Fullmetal Alchemist, I can talk about for years on end. So I hope you enjoyed the video, and if you like my videos and want to support this channel further, consider checking out my Patreon or YouTube membership. Here you get access to this channel's Discord server where I host my monthly anime watch-alongs. Currently, we've just started watching through Fullmetal Alchemist Brotherhood, which has been so much fun to revisit that series. You also get your name at the end of every video and access to exclusive Patreon posts. Thanks again for watching, and I hope to see you in the next one.